Team Scritch, welcome back to Scritch's Gone Wild channel. Thanks again for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Appreciate the love, the prayers, and the support and the encouragement all of you give me. So, another interview for you today. Another friend came out to hike with you. This is my best friend from about 4 years old. Yeah?
Yeah.
Met in the nursery at church, and we've been kind of joined at the hip to a certain extent our entire lives. So, you did 2 days with us, one night.
Yeah.
And it kicked your butt.
It was intense, yes.
All right, all right.
I'll admit.
All right, so I always got to start out because this is what my viewers want to know.
Mm-hmm.
They want to know what's your trail name and how'd you get it?
Well, they started calling me Vista because I like to see stuff, and I was making them stop every time we had a chance to look out and see God's nature.
What he's not telling you is before we got to a vista, he kept yelling, "Where's the vista? I got cheated on my hike."
Well, if you're gonna make us work and bust our butt to get up these hills and climb over rocks, and I mean these were huge boulders. My foot was hurting. You know, the vista is the icing on the cake. It's the dessert of the hike. If you don't get that, you're left wondering where's the rest.
Okay, that begs the question. Tell us about the vistas.
The vistas were amazing. We saw some great views of Greenwood Lake. Just across the New York border from New Jersey. A beautiful long lake, flush with vegetation, really nice.
What about New York City?
We could see New York City in the background, which is all the closer we wanted to be. The skyline was way in the distance, and we were good with that.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so tell us about your first backpacking experience ever.
My first backpacking experience ever. Wow, that goes back to my friend J.R. Scritchfield.
AKA Sky King.
Sky King. This was back 5-6 years ago.
2015 maybe?
Yeah,
I
maybe
think
about,
more than
about
that.
7 years ago.
2015.
Yeah, in the state of Washington in, I want to say, Mount Olympic National Forest. Is that right?
The Olympic, yes, the Olympic Mountains.
Yeah,
yes.
That was very cool.
Yep. And how far was the hike?
You know, I would say it was 10 miles one day, 5 another. It was about the same we did today.
It was actually 26 miles. I told him it was 20. I
Really?
Miscalculated. We did 13 a day.
We did.
We did.
You know what? This is what's amazing. That 13 miles a day was easier than the mileage we did on the Appalachian Trail. And I was surprised by that. I would really think, because of the popularity of the trail, that would have been an easier trail.
So tell us why you think the trail in Washington was easier than what we did on the AT.
Because in Washington, the trail was mostly unobstructed. There weren't a lot of rocks. There were wide open areas that were fields, very easy to walk in, very easy to hike in.
Uh-huh.
Whereas the AT is very rocky. There's lots of differences in elevation. The difficulty of where to place your feet, I thought, was a challenge I wasn't quite expecting. And then there was long stretches in our hike in New York, just over the New Jersey border, with giant boulders where you had to actually climb up and down. It was challenging, I think, for any hiker.
Talk to us about your gear a little bit. So you brought out your gear. You weren't worried because you knew we had you backed up, which is good. I mean, that's the best way. That's the best way. If you're going to go on a hike, go with somebody that has some experience and you know they got you backed up, so you're not going to, if you forgot something. But tell us about your gear. Tell us what worked, what didn't work, and maybe if you happen to forget anything, what you forgot.
Well, you know, I actually, I talked to you. You said, you know, get these Hoka shoes. And, you know, wasn't even sure what those were. So I went to the outfitter and I asked for Hoka shoes. And they're like, well, those are athletic shoes. We sell climbing. We sell hiking shoes. So I bought hiking shoes and they were fine, except
They were good shoes.
What I learned was that you want to actually buy a half size to a size larger than your foot, because your feet will swell. And when you add the size for the socks, it makes a tight fit. And I started to feel that in the second day of the hike.
So what about the rest of your gear?
Well, the rest of the gear was fine, except when I went to unpack the tent, I realized my tent cover was missing.
The rain cover.
The rain cover. I had left it at home because I was airing out the tent, and we looked at the forecast, and there was about a 50-50 chance of rain, and thankfully the Lord smiled on us, and we had a sprinkle, but nothing serious, so it worked out just fine. But it provided a good laugh, right? I mean, Who forgets the rain cover on their tent?
You do, and I knew there would be a good laugh with something in your gear because that's just who you are, and I know you. I mean, I've known you. You're like a brother more
Thank
than
you for that.
anything else.
I appreciate the vote of confidence.
So tell us about. I want to go into your shoes just a little bit more because you said, hey, get a half a size bigger, but I don't know that you explained why.
Yeah, so what I started to say was what we don't account for is the fact that when you hike a lot of miles, your feet tend to swell a little bit. And when you add in the thickness of the sock, it's important to realize that what might fit a size 9 or size 10, maybe think about a 10.5 or 11.
What about your toe?
So because there wasn't a lot of room for my big toe in my left boot, my left shoe, it kept rubbing against the shoe and there was a bruise forming underneath. By the end of hiking yesterday, after how many miles was that? 11 miles?
We did about 13 yesterday, I think.
After 13 miles, I was ready to be done. Yes, let's put it that way.
Yes, he was.
Yes.
So let's talk about your overall experience in your 2 days, 1 night on the trail. How would you say that was? Take away the gear issues, the foot issues, overall.
Well, there's a lot of components to it. First of all, it was a great experience. I love being out on the trail with you because you guys are great people. Like you said before, like spending time with a brother. But also, it was tough. It was tougher than I thought it would be. Again, because I thought the popularity of the trail meant everybody was doing it, and everybody is not doing it. It's difficult in the spaces that I was at, and I learned that these guys have become pros. Jess and JR, Sky King and Golden Goddess, I should say, also known as, have, by virtue of the fact that this is their 4th month into this.
Roughly, yeah.
They have
pretty
really
much
learned how to balance, not just endurance-wise, but to kind of avoid the rocks, to learn how to not twist your ankle, to know where to put your poles. And so they move very quickly, very efficiently. And although I'm in decent shape, I wasn't ready quite to move that efficient and quickly. But it went well. It was great to be in nature. Good vistas, by the way.
And and he by the end of yesterday, he was doing a Sunday afternoon stroll. There's no doubt about it.
Yes.
That's all good.
Yes.
Okay, so let's change gears just a little bit. So we realized we were really close to West Point, New York, the United States Military Academy. Most of you know, but for those of that you don't, I am a Naval Academy graduate and have really wanted to go see West Point for a long time. So we actually took today and we went and saw West Point, which was an amazing experience. I'm not going to talk about that. Unfortunately for all of you out there going, well, where's the videos? Well, we did it. We did an actual tour. My history of West Point isn't real good, as you can well imagine, because I'm a Naval Academy graduate. So I had to take the tour to kind of figure it out. And there was not an opportunity to video West Point itself. But by the way, we did it. But I'm going to ask you to tell all our friends and family and fans, what were your thoughts on West Point?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's always great to see a military academy of the United States because they're steeped in so much history. So many great leaders have gone through there. It was great to walk through the museum that's open to the public and free, by the way, if you're ever in the area. And then we got a tour and got more history about the history of the chapel and cadet life, which I thought was very useful.
So in the chapel, one of the most amazing chapels I've ever been in my life, very ornate. The stained glass is by far probably the best. It pains me to say that because the best chapel on the planet is definitely Annapolis. but beyond that, it was really pretty special and moving just actually being in that setting. Just a point of history for everybody out there. One of the things I didn't realize, and I'm assuming this was true for the Naval Academy too, and I'd have to look it up, but I'm assuming this was holistic throughout the all the service academies. But going to chapel was actually required up until 1973, and then in 1973 the U.S. Supreme Court said that's not constitutional, so they couldn't force you to go to chapel anymore. But up until 1973 you were required to go every Sunday to chapel. Now you got to choose what service you went to based on your religion, but you had to go, and that's no longer the case based on that setting. So for you history junkies out there, there's just a little bit of history trivia. I could go in more, but we're not going to do that. That's going to be for another day, another time when we get back here. So let me ask you this. So anybody that's kind of toying with backpacking, or if they're just like, that looks cool, I couldn't do it, should they do it? What should they think about? How should they think about it? Anything like that? Any of the 5 W's?
Yeah, so I guess what I would say, and I've not done this a long time, right? But in my short time of backpacking, I've realized the importance of shoes, right? The right fitting shoes, the right kind of shoes. Talk to people that are hiking, get advice on what's working for folks, and then try it, I would say, on short distances, because you don't want to do trial and error on a really long commitment. Because if you don't have working feet, if your feet are getting blisters and hurting, you're kind of useless on the trail. So I would say that's number one.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you're going to have to end up taking time to heal up and figure it out.
And the other thing I thought was invaluable was the walking sticks.
Trekking poles.
Yes, the trekking poles. You tried to tell me by text that those
I was
were important.
texting him. I'm like, whatever you do, bring trekking poles.
And I thought, you know what? He's exaggerating. Because you and I have gone hiking before, and I didn't use them in Washington. And it was a long hike. They were absolutely a necessity for the Appalachian Trail because of the rocky nature of the terrain. Really challenging. Having those poles is like having 2 more feet. It helps just keep your balance and move quickly through the terrain. So those are necessities.
So you did not buy poles. So how did you end up with trekking poles?
Yes, Greg, who was Craig, was on your last leg.
AKA trail name Pinch.
Yes, Pinch was on your last leg. And as he was leaving and going back home to Pennsylvania, I was coming on, and he graciously offered to give his poles to me and said, "You're going to need these." And I thought, maybe. And it turned out to be absolutely true. Had I not had those things, it would have been a killer. And I knew that as soon as we started, because the first thing we did was a steep uphill, and the poles are very helpful to pull uphill. And again, to just balance yourself and deal with navigating the rocks, which are plentiful on the Appalachian Trail.
So I know we're getting a little long in the video, but he keeps bringing up stuff, and it just brings questions to my mind, or things I want him to talk about. So there were a couple places we really had to climb rocks. I mean, literally climb. So it's one thing for me to describe that, and you're like, yeah, they're pros, and people are like, whatever. And so I want you to describe some of those rocks we climbed.
Yeah, they were huge boulders. And in New York, as you cross the line into New York from New Jersey, there really is, I'm just going to say it how it is. There is no path. There is no trail. There are just a series of giant boulders placed one after the other that they call a trail. And so you have to scale up and down. It's very steep. I found myself going down with my feet pointed sideways because of the steepness of the incline and decline. And these guys were kind of like mountain goats because they've been doing this for a couple of months, and they've acclimated, I think, to how to approach, obstacles and balance. And I think it's not so much endurance for me as it was the confidence of balance and using the poles in the right way. And they're both very adept at that, and that was evident from that. But it was a challenge.
So I'm just going to put it out there. I really am part mountain goat. I think one of my great-great-great-great-grandmothers was a mountain goat. I mean, I am a Scritchfield. That's just the way it works in my family. And he would know. He's been around. So yeah, that's talking about that portion, but I'm talking about where we actually had to climb vertically. Do you remember that? We had the rebar. Yes. We had to climb like a ladder.
Yes, we had to climb a ladder. It was
and then there was
so
another one that was...
There were times when I got to those rocks and I thought, are they kidding, right? Because this is not a trail. This is not what humans do when they hike. These were scaling huge boulders. But at the end, I'm kind of glad for the challenge, because I would have been disappointed had it been just a hike in the woods. I mean, I exerted myself and spent 100% of my energy getting over those obstacles, and so I didn't, as the saying goes, didn't leave anything on the trail.
I do have to vouch for that, because yesterday at the end of the day, he looked at Golden Goddess and I, and he's just like, I don't know how you guys still have energy. Well, we've been hiking for 4 months, 1,300 miles. I mean, that's got to count for something somewhere, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but this is one thing I want you to know, though. I appreciate your guys' approach to the trail, because you're not one of the people that live just to be on the trail. Rather, you use the trail as a tool for living. And by that, I mean you're stopping and seeing cool things, like West Point. You're stopping and mixing with the crowd. You're enjoying the fellowship of other hikers, and when it's time to take your time and enjoy life a little bit, you're doing that. And that gave me the opportunity to come join you, because you're not so focused on the miles and numbers that you're still living and inviting people to join you. That's a great example and way to hike.
And that's our motto, and that's what we said from the beginning, that we wanted to make sure we wanted to build those relationships, however we could build those relationships, because that's what's important. What you leave in life is a legacy. You're not going to take any of those material possessions with you. You're not going to take your memories with you, really. So all of that's going to remain behind, but you can leave a legacy with the people, with your family, with your kids. And so that's what we've been all about, is the relationships. All right, we're getting a little long in the tooth, my brother. I could do this interview for hours, so I'm just going to say, I'm just going to give you, well, two things. I'm going to give you an opportunity. So Pinch is one of our biggest fans, and he watches this, so I didn't know if you wanted to sing his praises as you were the entire time you were hiking. And he's going to be listening to this, so you can talk personally to him right now if you want to.
Pinch, you saved my life. And I just want you to know, we've only known each other for a few days, and we've only talked for maybe 10 minutes. But you're in my inner circle. I appreciate your giving me those walking sticks, because had I not had them, this would have been very difficult. I probably would still be on the trail. Thank you.
So you learned a lesson. Maybe Sky King knows a thing or two, and you might listen next time.
Well, I mean, you have to use the right inflection too. I mean, you didn't say these will save your life. But that was the truth.
And this is what I've dealt with my whole life. He won't listen to me next time. But he is good at learning life examples through life, and so that's okay.
That's right.
All right. Any final thoughts you'd like to tell anybody about the trail, or anything you learned on the trail or saw on the trail or preparing for the trail?
It's a metaphor for life. It's a journey. And who you're with is pretty key. And I was blessed to walk with these two people. So I'd say that's number one.
All right.
Pick the right people to hike with.
Thanks, brother. Love
right.
you.
Thanks, buddy.
I've known this character my whole life, so he gets a kiss. Nobody else does.
That was great.
Except for Golden Goddess. So you guys know the deal. Say your prayers, stay positive, do something good for somebody. There ain't one person that told me what they've done good yet, so I'm still waiting for that. So let me know what you guys are doing. Have a glass of wine for me tonight. Until next time, Sky King out.